Yeah, many thanks for joining us on another edition of Hot Seats on the People's Telly. I am Moses or Jewumi. Of course, on this show, we delve into the minds of influential figures, ask a pertinent question within the precinct, of their professional field. And today, my guest, engineer, a legal practitioner, former chairman, Ogtv. He is a genius, let me put it that way. And this is someone who combines his boardroom, law practice, and management engagements with a committed devotion to showcasing and promoting Nigerian arts and culture. In fact, he is currently Nigeria's largest private arts collector, with over 7,000 artworks of sculptures, paintings and other media, as well as 55,000 photographic shots of Nigerian's cultural festivals. That speaks volumes about the personality of my guest today. And what am I talking about? Omoba YEMISI ADEDOYIN SHYLLON. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Yeah, my privilege.
Yes, glad to have you. I could recall, I think a few years ago, we had this in Abeokuta.
That was a very hot one.
Yes. And
I hope this one will be cooler.
Yeah. Let's hope so. Yes, but quickly, let's get to see his profile. I'll be right back. Stay with us. Okay, you're still watching Hot Seats right here on Ogun State Television, and my guest, Omoba YEMISI ADEDOYIN SHYLLON, and that's what's his profile. You could say a man of many parts. Talk about engineering, talk about the legal, sector or profession, and even in the business or in the marketing world. This is a man that has held notable positions, in the corporate world. And yes, and like I said, one of the largest, art collectors in the world. Welcome to the show once again.
Thank you.
Yes, I would like to know, it may sound like a cliche or repetitive, but what's really sparked your interest in arts?
So I'm an artist, but my interest in art began when I was a kid. I used to trace a lot. I used to sketch and trace. In fact, one of my cousins, Olamide Mugoya, based in America, ended up following my footsteps, in terms of how he loved the way I was sketching and painting. He ended up becoming an advertising guru in America. So, but I was more a mathematician, which is what pushed me away. However, when I was at the University of Ibadan, I used to go and read at Yaba Tech on holidays, and I got enthralled by what I saw in terms of student projects. And before I knew what was happening, I started collecting as an undergraduate at the University of Ibadan. And the rest is history. I've collected all over the world. During my cruises around the world, during my train travels and so on around the world. So I've been collecting for decades, artworks around the world, about 80 countries of the world.
Of course, you made it to the top, 100, talking about an art collection in the world. And I mean, this seems to me like an obsession.
Yes, I call it glorious obsession. It started as an interest. It was just a childhood interest. And then it grew to become a passion. And from passion, it went into obsession. And from obsession, it became a glorious obsession. Glorious in the sense that I have used this, my obsession, to help many people get PhDs in the world. Many people have come to my foundation, obtaining grants to get PhD in Nigerian history, Nigerian art history and culture. And I've helped many, many artists all over the world, more of Nigerians, to become great artists. So it's a glorious one, and of course I've ended up solely funding Nigeria's first private university museum. So I think it's a glorious obsession. And I've written 2 books on art, so it's no longer an obsession, it's a glorious obsession.
But I mean, how do you correct people's misgivings, or perhaps you say misconceptions, about art collection? Some people will link it with spirituality, and we are religious people. For instance, Christianity, Islam do not really glorify art collection.
I think there is a wrong interpretation to the Bible in terms of Exodus chapter 20 verse 4 to 6. God did not say you cannot produce images. He says you must not worship it. That's the whole intention of God. You don't worship it, you collect it. And the same people who gave this wrong interpretation of Exodus chapter 20 verse 4 to 6 are the ones who have been taking our works and they use it to promote tourism in their countries, while we are fooling ourselves here about religious connotations in the wrong way. Now let's take the Quran. The Quran chapter 21 verse 52 to 54. Allah told Muhammad that his forefathers were worshipping the idols, and he said they should not worship. The word is worship. Check your Quran again, chapter 21 verse 52 to 54. So these are wrong interpretations of the Bible. The truth is that these are creations of man, and creations of man have been used to develop humanity. All the aeroplanes you are flying today, I mean, somebody like Leonardo da Vinci was the first to sketch an aeroplane. I mean, it took an artist to think about it, visualize it, create it, and then for us engineers to begin to see how we can propel it. The motor cars you are riding, I mean, I've been to factories and I've been part of factories in the world, and I can tell you, Caterpillar, when I used to be marketing manager of Caterpillar, we had artists in-house that would give us models of our big earth-moving equipment, how it can be better. Then we engineers will now begin to study stability, the load, the torque, and so on and so forth. So it's all a misnomer, miseducation. And it all came about, there were Wahhabis in the Muslim faith, and of course the Pentecostalists in the Christian faith. So it's a wrong interpretation. Please, art provides many, many advantages to the world. One of them is tourism. Tourism cannot thrive without art. And I will tell you that tourism is one of the major industries in the world. Countries like Aruba, which I've been to, countries like Seychelles, which I've been to, countries like Madagascar, name it, they all live on tourism. Egypt, if you go down to Egypt, in Cairo, which I've been to, 132,000 works of art. It makes money from tourism. Tourism, South Africa, name it. Go down to China, go down to Macau, go down to Aruba, go down to, name it, all over the world. Art is an integral part of tourism. That's the first thing. Secondly, art promotes the culture of a people. Thirdly, art establishes, gives enough archaeological input to the history of the people. The history of the people, the way of life and their tradition at any point in time. Art adds to the glamour of life, the leisure, creativity. I can go on and on. But finally, and most importantly, art is a very solid form of investment. Wow. Look, I can tell you that there are some works I bought when I was in the University of Ibadan for 10 naira, which are going for hundreds of millions today. Art is a very solid, people don't know, art is even better than land. It's more stable than shares. It's more stable than many things. So it's a very solid form of investment.
Many Nigerians would rather go to the museum, to see, some of these arts, but I could see around you have them, in their numbers. But the fear out there when it comes to owning, like particularly sculptures, people say these sculptures house no spirits.
It makes me laugh. Stupid ignorance. Look, everywhere in the world, you need artists to promote religion. When Christianity started, and I'm talking about 70 AD, people could not read and write. So they needed artists to sketch and draw and produce sculptures. And they used them around them. Go to the Vatican Museum and see. Go to the Egyptian Museum. Go to the museums in Morocco. Go down to all the museums in the world. And you see what people have done with art over the centuries when they could not read and write. Now, over time, when they could now read and write, there is one museum in central Brussels in Belgium, where if you go, you see the work of Ghent, the work of various artists that were produced in the 11th century, 12th century, that were used to promote religion. The fountains of Olodumare.
Once in a while, the Western countries return some of the stolen artworks, or say restitution of African artworks plundered in the colonial era. And I want your take concerning this restitution, because a school of thought believes, these arts or artifacts are better appreciated, in foreign lands. That it seems we cannot take care, of our arts, the way we should.
Those who say that are right. We are yet to know how to handle our works, and yet we are clamoring that the work should be returned. Look, those works where they are now, they are receiving better treatment and better appreciation by our people. We just finished a topic now about how people see our objects, our ethnographic and traditional art. We just talked about it. The average Nigerian, what I normally tell people when they tell me about this, and there are many, I say, please, how many of you have been to the National Museum anytime this year? And usually, sometimes one or so. Whereas where they are, people go there almost every week. They take their families they enjoy the weekend and so on and so forth. Researches are done and so on. But here, we distance ourselves. For 3 years, I offered pro bono to serve as part of the management committee of one of the biggest museums, national museums in Nigeria. And I can tell you that notwithstanding what we did, go back there now and you see what it has become. We are not managing those works well enough. And yet we are clamoring for those works to be returned. Having said that, I do not succumb to the fact that we should not ask for those works to be returned. What I am of the opinion is that we should arrange a way by which our legal title to those works are recognized by those who are holding those works right now. And so, under an equitable arrangement, an agreement, under UNESCO convention, the various UNESCO conventions, and under national customary law, we can agree with those holding our works for them to pay us annual royalty for those works, having recognized our legal title to the works. And then we can now use those royalty, if we are serious as a people, to gradually build the human resource and the technology plus the infrastructure to now get back these works and house them appropriately. There's a lot of technology required to, and of course there's a lot of technical know-how. You know, just assume that these works are there. There are people who are paid restorers to restore those works. There is a lot of temperature ambience that you must provide, and so on and so forth. So those things are missing, and we should use the royalty we collect to build the infrastructure, train the people to handle those works well, reorientate our people, because a lot of national orientation needs to take place. Because right now, the average Nigerian distances himself or herself from our museums. They want to run away. They assume that there are some devils in these works and so on and so forth. And I laugh because I've been living with these works before I even got married. I've been living with these works before I had any of my children. And none of them is deformed though. And nobody in this house is deformed.
But with this understanding, it doesn't look as if the future of arts or museums is bright, kind of, because the younger generation, all they know now is to go to the cinema, go to the zoo to see animals, and that culture is dying. We have to do something, and that is what I am doing with the YEMISI SHYLLON Museum. In the YEMISI SHYLLON Museum of Art, you can go and find out, this is very true, we are partnered with international agencies. We have, and of course, local corporate bodies that we have been exposing the young ones to visit the YEMISI SHYLLON Museum of Art. We give them sketchbooks. They sit down on the floor. The sketch works they see. We educate them about not only the history of the work, but also the technology behind the work. So, and we've been doing that for about 4 to 5 years now. As I'm speaking to you, tomorrow morning, we are going to start an exhibition about 3 months of Arewa in the YEMISI SHYLLON Museum, whereby we are going to expose, again, the young ones to the fact that even under the Muslim culture, there is some level of creativity, and there are great artists that have evolved from the Muslim culture. So, yes, our nation needs to do more. We need a complete national reorientation. We need re-education, and our schools should serve as a starting point. I mean, from primary school, secondary school, we should have teachers who can teach culture and history, not just history, but also culture. And let children from kindergarten or whatever it is begin to see some beauty and some sense in what we are. Unfortunately, I feel religiosity it will be a stumbling block because particularly when it comes to African arts, we feel they are fetish, they are dirty, and so I feel this repositioning you're talking about, or this reorientation you're talking about, well,
I can tell you it's taking shape gradually. Gradually? Yes, because we are doing a lot. Some of us are doing a lot. We are re-educating. There is a Yoruba Cultural Center in Dallas, of which I am a patron. We are doing a lot. When children who grew up in America and in all advanced countries come home and they are showing interest in some of these things, I'll tell you there is the follow attitude of Nigerians.
Maybe those overseas.
They are coming home. They are coming home. They are coming home. They come on holidays. They meet people that are in Nigeria. They go to our museums. They educate when they come home on holidays. It's a gradual process. It will happen.
Okay, you did make a valid, contribution or suggestion the other time, talking about an annual royalty now from those that have stolen, our art.
I don't use the word stolen.
Okay, so what do you use?
No, no, no. Look, there was a time in the world when might was supreme. And I could just take your territory and you are subordinate to your king and everybody is subordinate. It happened in Nigeria. I mean, many of our obas were regulated thanks to the Ogunmakun that occurred in 1892, in which a particular part of the Yoruba land was decimated by the British, and since then we've not been able to recover in terms of our traditional institution. So it's changing. Things are changing.
But what would you rather use if I mean, you don't want stolen? You feel those things were not stolen. Some would say literally it was stolen.
They were taken away. They were taken away under existing laws, international laws, and international laws. And look, let's take for instance, this international law I'm alluding to is what made it possible for France to recover the loot of the Louvre from the Germans. It is what made it possible for Russia to recover the loot from the Germans. The Germans raided St. Petersburg and looted it. I mean, so international law has begun to change. International customary law, UNESCO convention. Before then, it was the law of the might. It was the law of the might. So I don't know whether I would rather want to use the word. No, I won't use. It was. I would say rather they took the works under, legally took the works under the then pre-existing law, international law. Now you can talk from hindsight. You know, you can talk from hindsight that given the situation now in international law, it was stolen. But at that time, you can't call it stolen. You wouldn't call it stolen. It's the law of the might. It was the law of the might. Unfortunately, yes. Yes, at that time, even under your own primordial culture, the Alaafin of Oyo could just take your wife. Will you call it stealing? In fact, the woman will be celebrating that she's now the wife of Alaafin of Oyo.
But in as much as some were given freely, but some were taken in war situations.
Which ones? Which are you talking about now?
But I mean, this stolen artifact.
Well, when you talk about war situation, when I fight a war with you and I conquer you, am I not entitled to everything about you? That's what I'm saying. I say the law of the might.
Okay, now, my point, the annual reality you spoke about, I know we have the Ministry of Culture and Tourism. I'm not sure if this is on the table. Is this something you'd love to take up as an advocacy?
Well, I have advised people relating with UNESCO. I have delivered papers on this issue about restitution. I have advised that we should go gradually. But we must remember one thing. When many of these works were taken away, they were taken away under monarchical democracy, autocracy, monarchical autocracy, whereby many of these works, for instance in Benin, the works belonged to the Oba of Benin. It was monarchical autocracy. And at that time, it was 1897, there was no Nigeria. Nigeria did not exist. Nigeria came into being in 1914. And so, when you want to begin to look at the international law and look at our local laws, the laws of the Federation of Nigeria, as amended in 2014, has provisions for the National Council for Museum and Monument. That law says that the works, traditional arts or ethnographic objects in Nigeria all belong to the sovereign state. And who owns the title to those works? The National Commission for Museum and Monument. So when you now say you want those works returned, there is a controversy around that, which is being resolved. When you now say you want those works returned, I mean, the autocratic monarchy wants the work returned to the palace, and the state, those who are going to return the works, are confused between The fact that the international law says that they should return it to the state, and then within that state there is a clamor that it has to go. So those are issues that require some looking at. But I think the National Commission for Museum and Monument are beginning to work out a solution, because recently some stools were returned to Benin, which was celebrated. So it means they must be working out some solution.
From the Benin, example, I could recall a few years ago when we had some returned, from Germany, and this silent tussle between the Edo State government and the Oba of Benin. Yes, got to a point the federal government had to return it to the palace. So that brings the point.
That's what I'm saying. That it's
where should this be kept, a palace or public museum?
Look, it should be in public museum. I mean, we've left the 18th century, 19th century life. All over the world, museums are for you and I to enjoy the works there. I have a way of looking at it. Why don't you create a museum, public museum, in which you make the king who used to represent the kingdom where these works were taken, you make them the titular head. You create an arrangement around him to ensure that he still has his rights and so on to oversee some of these works, while the public is able to enjoy the works. The work should be for public enjoyment and to attract tourism. I don't think they have provisions within the palaces to take good care of this, and they don't have the technology. Times have changed. We can't live in the past.
But the argument from the side of the traditionalists, even the palace also is an attraction on its own, and the king would want to take his visitors. So
what is wrong? What is wrong? What is wrong in having build a place? You say that this place is a public museum, and you make the Oba the chairman of that public museum, and you give him all the powers and let him at least recognize his equity, the equity he has in the work.
Having the public museum within the palace.
I don't think those palaces want people to be entering them and coming out anyhow. You have to be careful. There is a right of ingress and ingress.
But the palace is big enough?
Well, I don't know. I don't know which palace you're talking about, but I don't know, because I don't think the palace in Lagos is big enough. I don't know the palace in Abeokuta will take the museum.
The case study here, which is that of Oba of Benin.
I don't know, and I don't want to know. But I'm looking at issues from a more practical point of view. I think the interest of the Oba should be taken into consideration, and the interest of the generality of the people and the state should also be taken into consideration in coming out at a solution, a very good solution. And the solution I have is that they create a public museum and let the Oba have some representational authority over the works, and let the world see the works, let it be available to the public to go in and out without disturbing the peace and tranquility of the palace.
Okay, well, let's switch gear. Yes, I think we are done with arts, and let's move to engineering, your first love, somewhat, which you did make your mark before we then end it with law. I know you have a program on Ogun State Television, a program you are sponsoring, Engineering and You.
It's fourth year now.
Yeah, fourth year now. And that speaks to your passion, to your love, for engineering, because you feel we can do a lot, with engineering. But it doesn't seem as if we are capable of correcting infrastructural deficiencies ourselves. You go out there, you see the Lebanese, you see the Chinese, and at times I ask the engineers, because I've spoken to some of them, including the president of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, that what these people are doing, can't our local engineers do this?
They are given the opportunity. There is political interest over technical competency. They say who pays the piper, they take the tune. I think that's the summary of the answer I will give you.
But they use our look when these expatriates come.
Who gives them the job? Who gives them the job? Do they prefer to give jobs to local engineers or local companies,
But are local engineers, competent enough?
More than competent. Some of these expatriate companies now engage the local engineers to look at the Lagos Calabar route. Are they not local engineers that are doing it? Now, look, you are going into politics. I'm not interested in politics. He who pays the piper dictates the tune. If only engineers can be given opportunities to perform in this country. Many of our engineers leave this country and make their mark outside the country. We make a lot of marks outside the country. But are we giving a chance here? Do we award road contracts to Nigerian engineers? Do we award major projects to Nigerian engineers? No. You can only talk what you are saying now that I will agree with. When you talk about artisans, yes, we don't have many artisans, no thanks to the system in this country where everybody wants to have a degree. Nobody wants to be the technician. But even these days now, they are clamoring that HND should be equal to degrees, whereas HND was not conceptualized as a degree earning program. It was meant for middle level manpower. That's the whole concept, the establishment concept of HND program. And there is nothing bad about having an HND, because you need, in the engineering cadre, you need engineers who are the designers, people that design and calculate and all these things. You also need the HND people who are going to provide the model, forms, and ensure those things work properly. Hold on. Ensure those things work. And then you need technicians who will maintain and blah, blah, blah. So we have different levels of engineering.
But so, now, the middle level personnel, maybe the HND holders, they feel in the cog of the whole thing, they are the most important because they do all the work. While those with BSc will only supervise, they can only design, and they cannot fix things.
Well, the international companies in which I worked recognized the difference. I worked with Caterpillar for 3 years after my first degree, or 2.5 years after my first degree, and I can tell you that it is degree holders in engineering that design and modify and improve equipment. The HND people are those who ensure that whatever is designed is put into form, and of course we have the technicians who do the maintenance and everything. This is recognized all over the world, the sane world, all over the sane world. I don't know about this one you're talking about.
Okay, but what about the suggestion that, okay, let's there be, for example, let every engineer go to the Polytechnic, maybe let them have the ND certification, and from there they go.
That's very funny.
They go to the university.
That's very funny.
The HND holders, they feel slighted and shortchanged by the system.
Engineers are those who design, who conceptualize, who design. HND people are those who practicalize the designs and make sure that those designs, working with engineers, can work. We recognize that under COREN, Certified Organization of Registered Engineers in Nigeria. We recognize technicians as part of the engineering community. We recognize them. We recognize artisans as part of the engineering community. There is no problem. But you see, you cannot kill the middle level manpower and let everybody go to do degree and no more level. And that's what Nigeria is suffering from now. Nigerians now, Dangote has to go to India to bring in his technical people, artisans, welders, carpenters, and so on. Indians are the ones in Dangote industry. Because everybody wants to have a degree. Whereas degrees are not meant for hands-on people. They are meant for brains-on. Engineers are the brain box. They are the brain box in terms of conceptualizing, designing, and remodeling, and so on and so forth.
But do you feel education at the tertiary level is too theoretical? Some would say we have those who study elect, they cannot.
That's not true. In my undergraduate, I had 6 months attachment. I had 6 months attachment in Kano River project. I had 6 months. I had John Holt engineers. I had 3 months. I worked with UTC. I had 3 months. I had technical exposure. Now I've been telling them we should ensure that people still have that kind of experience that some of us had. In my part 3, I was away for 6 months, working with Netherlands engineers, designing systems. And so I'm sorry, the fact that somebody somewhere collapsed for his own self-interest, collapsed the whole something to say that HND must be at the same level of entry qualification in the civil service with BSc, and the whole thing created confusion, does not mean it is right. We should allow the engineering division as it is in the world, in the sane world, to remain. If you are very brilliant, you are a very good mathematician, you are a thinker, you are a conceptualizer, go and get your first class and do your be a researcher, and things of that nature, designer. But if you are more into using your hands and you still have some brains, go and do HND. But if you are more into really using your hand and very little education, then go and be, everybody will survive. The market is there for everybody. Nobody is superior to the other. This idea of wanting to say I'm equal to that is what is causing this confusion.
But polytechnic graduates would say, they were almost taught almost the same thing.
That's not true. That's not true. No, that's not true.
And they can do almost the same thing.
That is not true. The polytechnic education is completely different from university education. The university is a scholastic establishment. You don't have professors in polytechnic, sir. You don't have professors. You don't. So, university education is more of research.
But we now have doctors in polytechnics.
Yeah, because everybody is clamoring to become doctor, and many of them are getting doctorate, which we and you know, we know the Nigerian factor.
There seems to be a thin line between being a doctor and being a professor.
What did you say?
Because a doctor will become a professor anyway.
How many of them are professors in polytechnic? You say there is a thin line. You cannot be a professor in a polytechnic.
I know.
And the university system is completely different. That somebody is in a polytechnic and goes to get HND, get a PhD, that's his wala. He should go to the university and use his PhD to do research and be more useful to society. Polytechnic is not for research. Polytechnic is not for research. It's more for practical, hands-on practicality.
Well, I hope the separation is still, out there.
It's recognized by Koren. That separation is recognized by Koren, and Koren is following it up. And those with HND, they are not looked down upon. They are treated as a family, the umbrella of the engineering family. They are not looked down upon. No way. There is no ego. It's not an issue about ego. It's an issue about, look, a nurse can do PhD in nursing. It doesn't make him a doctor. You can go to the university to read nursing. It doesn't make you a doctor.
But there's also
training are different.
There's also between nurses and doctors. But
hospital, because it's a Nigerian problem.
Recognition, the pay disparity.
That's a Nigerian problem. That's a Nigerian problem. If you think there is a hustle between a doctor and a nurse, it's a very unfortunate thing. The job of a doctor is different from that of a nurse. They are completely different.
Well, but in recent times, we've seen these conversions. Some will call it polytechnics being converted into universities.
Yeah, these are all politics.
Some will say upgrade.
These are all politics. I'm not interested in politics. I'm talking about practicality. These are all politics. These are all politics. We have universities and we have universities. There are universities and there are universities. These are politics. These are all politics.
So you are not in tune with the conversion? Because there's this craze for university degrees. Even those who attended polytechnic.
That's why I said it's a Nigerian factor. It's a Nigerian factor.
Okay. Well, let's leave engineering and let's talk about judiciary. I want your take about the current state of judiciary. Some say, oh, it's in the dark chapter already. We've seen some conflicting orders, conflicting ex parte orders, and the way politicians seem to find their way around the judiciary to suit their ambition.
About what? The judiciary is being managed by the National Judiciary Commission, and they are working within the limits of political powers, and they are doing well. That's all I can say.
There should be separation of powers.
Between who and who?
The executive,
the Constitution recognizes it. The Constitution recognizes it.
Yes.
The Constitution recognizes it. And when it comes to become, we have had in this country where the judiciary has stepped in to save this country. When it comes to become, the judiciary rises up to the occasion and saves this country.
But currently, the common man seems to be losing trust, in the judiciary. We say the will of justice grinds slowly. But in this part of the world,
well, I agree with you about will of justice grinding slowly. I delivered a paper to the Ikeja branch of the Nigerian Bar Association, where I pointed out some of the problems in the Nigerian bar, and I listed about 15 issues that need to be looked at, some of which are delays in justice, the fact that some judges don't turn up. The lawyers will go down to the court and assign dates, and the judge will just not turn up, and you say take another date. You want to file a case, you have problems. These are normal things that can be solved in every society. But we are a developing nation. We have our problems, but so far the Nigerian Bar Association is looking into this, how we can ensure that we can work more in common, Nigerian Bar and judiciary to work more in common to improve the judicial system. But so far, I don't think we are doing too badly. We are not doing too badly. The common man still, no matter how long it takes, the common man still gets his justice. I have had a case in court now going to about 5 years, in which I sued.
But the common man wouldn't want to go to courts these days.
Even lawyers, we lawyers don't want to go to court.
Because the common one would want to wait forever, wait for 20 years, 25 years to get justice that's not guaranteed.
You don't wait 20, 25 years. Sorry, stop.
There's not an exaggeration.
Stop exaggerating.
I know cases
can you tell me one case?
I know cases that linger for that long.
Like which one? Like which one, 25 years?
Okay, well, anyway, let's
continue.
Let's be
frank. Let's be frank. Look,
but I know cases that lingered for 10 years.
Hello,
15
there
years.
is shortage of judges in Nigeria. The Supreme Court, for instance, needs to be expanded. The Court of Appeal needs to be expanded. There's a lot of changes need to happen. We need the structure of the judiciary. But these are not something that will occur just because it has some financial implications, and to what extent can government go, the state governments and the federal government. So it's not as simple as that. But what I want to tell you is that yes, we have problems at the bar, there are problems in the judiciary. I can always attest to that, but they are not as bad as you claim to be. They are not as bad, and that people are looking into it. I delivered a paper, like I said, I think some 3 months ago, the Nigerian Bar Association, where I offered and proffered solutions to some of these problems.
But given the case in Kano, yes, Sanusi versus Bayero, because some also say even the judiciary, it seems...
Who pays the piper dictates the truth. The case in Kano, you know what is happening. So don't let us go. I don't want to discuss cases, because don't forget that these cases are still in court. It's sub judice to start discussing specific cases. He who pays the piper dictates the tune. Okay,
what about the cases that have been finalized? We tend to...
Which one has been finalized?
Yeah, okay. Let me give you a case that, in fact, for many Nigerians, they can't still understand how it's happened that way. The former senator, Ahmed Lawan, Ahmed Lawan versus Machina. Ahmed Lawan didn't take part in the primary elections. But
do you know that when you are in court, if you have a very bad lawyer, I can defeat you based on technicalities. There are issues settled in court. It's not always based on facts and law alone. It's also based on technicalities. If you go and give your case to a very bad lawyer, you lose your case. You don't blame that to the judiciary. Sorry.
But in recent times, we've seen a wave of coups, in Africa, Gabon, Burkina Faso, even neighboring country, Niger, and some would say, is democracy really the answer, for Africa?
Well, I think there is a problem. Our own system of governance did not evolve from our culture, as against the system of governance in China. The system of governance in China is not democracy, it's called plutocracy, in which you have, I think, 7 Politburo members who take decisions, and they come up there by merit. You go through different stages, you pass exams, you must have headed provinces successfully before you can be promoted to that level. But democracy has given to us by our colonial masters, has evolved from the Greeks, is not in tune with our culture. It's not in tune with our culture, and we have not taken the good side of democracy. I wish that we could be like Indians. India was colonized for over 300 years. Africans were colonized for, Nigeria particularly was colonized for less than 100 years. But India, 300 years plus, by the same Britain, is better managed than Nigeria. Nigeria's democracy. India's democracy is built around the Hindu culture. The Hindu culture, that's why when you go to Indian parliament, the first language is Hindu. I've taught all India, and I'm talking from knowledge. But whereas in Nigeria here, there's a lot of confusion. We don't really know who we are. We don't know who we are. We're copying something that is foreign to our culture, which we are not used to.
Some would say our democracy is still nascent, in a way. That even America spends, donkey years to get to where they are.
Is the democracy of Singapore nascent? Is it not working very well? Is Singapore not working very well? Singapore had its independence about the same time, or even later than Nigeria. I've been to Singapore. Singapore is bomb. I mean, there are many countries in the world that are running democracy, but they have allowed their culture.
But given our population, given our size, given our diversity.
Do you know that there is about 500 different tribes in India? You have only 350. And you talk about population. India is about 1.3 billion. You are only 250 million. So you talk about population. This thing has nothing to do with population. It has to do with the fact that we have not sat down to evolve a shared culture. We have not created a shared culture and shared value on which we can develop our so-called democracy around that. We don't have a national ideology. I mean, in America, as bad as it is, once they say America, whether you're a Democrat or you are a Republican, you forget about those two parties and you look at the nation as prime. But in this country, what we have is a democracy that is aristocratically managed based on the vices of tribalism, poverty, ignorance, and then religion. And those 4 things is being used by these aristocrats and elites to divide us, and their goal is to make wealth and have control of power.
You did say national ideology, and I know that at times it's very hard to for the Nigerians to speak with one voice because of our diversity somewhat. Till now we don't have a lingua franca. Some would say, oh, we can make Pidgin English a lingua franca. Then thoughts.
When you fill a national form, what did they ask you to fill there? They tell you to say your state of origin.
Yes.
Do you know what that does? It's like promoting tribalism. Why don't you stop it? If you want to promote nationalism, the America and everything you are talking about, will they ask you your state of origin in America? Or in England, will they ask you your state of origin? Tell you where is your address for the purpose of planning, national planning. That's all. But here, we allow tribalism to try, because those who are in control of power will not give up power because of the wealth that they are making. And they divide us based on tribalism, religion, poverty, and ignorance. So if you want to change Nigeria, then stop asking people to feel their state of origin. Of what benefit is asking me to state my state of origin when I'm feeling a national form? Ask me where I'm staying. You don't even need to ask me where I was born. Ask me where I'm staying or where my parents are staying, so that you can plan. The various things that is needed in that area: power, water, environment, and so on. Why ask people their state of origin? Then ideology. Do we have a national ideology? No. What is it you and I have as a goal for this country? We don't have a national ideology. Nobody is whipping us up to face a particular common goal. We don't have it. So we need to redefine our space. We need to redefine our space to make it better for this so-called democracy to work.
Okay, well, we are costing home, and you did say we should try and forge a democracy with identity. No, you cited without culture. Yes, without identity. Exactly. No, but some would say, going back in history, what we had was a monarchical rule of government. Was monarchy, kind of, with maybe some stains of checks and balances, which may not even be enough. An Oba could take your wife tomorrow and say. So are we going to look at?
We had our checks and balances.
Yeah, we had our checks and balances. But were they enough?
We deposed Obas in Yoruba land. We had our checks and balances. Obas were deposed. Obas ran away from palace. In Abeokuta there, we had the great Alake that had to leave when women said no more. So don't say that. We had our checks and balances, but we were not given room to develop our own originality in terms of culture and then modernize it. We were not given. They just took it away and said, look, there is a doctrine in law. It's called the repugnancy doctrine. Everything that has to do with our culture, our customs, we are giving validity based on the repugnancy of equity, natural justice, and good conscience. And what is equity and natural justice based on somebody else's culture? What is a good conscience based on somebody else's culture? What is natural justice? That same natural justice for which they measured my own customary law values was that same natural justice they used to enslave my forefathers for 400 years. What is equity? Was there any equity in coming to my town and picking up people, putting them in slave ships, or taking them across the Sahara and, defaming them, making them eunuchs to live in palaces? Look, we were not given a chance, and we are not giving ourselves the chance to grow and build our own natural, our own identity, like the Indians have done.
Well, we are coasting home, and given your stance, I don't think you believe in federal character.
I believe in merit. I think everybody should try and produce merit-based system so that you can bring your own very good item that can meet. And just like you have the plutocracy that I'm talking about in China, I believe in merit. Right? What do you mean by federal character? Why is it that some people should believe in producing arimongeries, and some people are, and some people believe in sending their children to church and going to school, and then at the end of the day talking about federal character? No. We think everything should be based on merit.
But we are not developing at the same level. I'm looking at the geopolitical
zones. You don't have to develop at the same level. But there are some, you have graduates in whatever society of this country. You have good people. Put them forward and appoint them, This idea of federal character has destroyed this country.
Because with
Merit has not
meritocracy,
been allowed to.
with meritocracy, the fear is it will favor some parts and it won't favor some parts.
Why must it favor some parts? Those parts that are not being favored, they've had 60 years or 64 years now to build themselves. 64 years. How long are we going to wait? How long are we going to wait?
Well, it's a whole lot, but I think at this point we will have to wrap up. But something strikes me about you. Yes, you became the board chairman of Ogtv and OGBC in your 30s, and from engineering to law. Yes, you headed a marketing director at some point at Nigerite, Caterpillar, and like you're a man of many parts. And I would like to know what drives you? What is your philosophy?
Fear of failure. What drives me is fear of failure. Right from my teens, I had my goals set up, and I hated to fail in life. And I packed so many things in my years that at times I tell my family I don't know how I achieved them. Fear of failure. I mean, at a stage I was a stockbroker, at a stage I was a marketer, at a stage I was a lawyer, at a stage I was an engineer, at a stage I was an auctioneer. I auctioned for United Nations Children's Fund. I mean, many things put into one. So I don't know, but I know that I had the fear of failure, and I wanted to succeed, and I wanted to make my mark, and that was the driving force.
Well, I think that's quite striking, because you're a prince, and I would say you were born with a silver spoon. Of course.
I was not given that silver spoon. I was born with a silver spoon, but I was not given the silver spoon. I fought for it. I fought for it, and I have got the relevance.
Well, on that note, I think we could leave it there. And I hope one day we will be ready, particularly with arts, culture, and tourism. But many thanks, Abuba,
thank you
for
thank you.
allowing us to your home.
You always bring out the. I don't know how you go about it, but you have my respect.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. So that's the show, Hot Seats, right here on the People's Telly, and my guest has been YEMISI ADEDOYIN, SHYLLON, and we've from art and culture to law to engineering, and of course a bit of national development. Yes, we've covered all these areas because he's a man of many parts. Well, till next week when I come your way with another influential figure, I say to you, stay safe and stay out of trouble. Bye for now.
Human trafficking is a